Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Bangalore Sahodaya School Complex Association. We are delighted to have with us Dr. Anandi Martis. In spite of a busy schedule, she agreed to take up this session. I have given a very short time, but she's so passionate about her work and what she's doing. She said, I'm ready to take up this session for the educators. May I request Mrs. Preeti Suta, Vice Principal DPS Bangalore East, to introduce our resource person, Dr. Anandi Martis, to the participants. Over to you, Preeti.
Thank you, Manila ma'am, and a very, very good evening to the entire assemblage. It's indeed an honor to be introducing Dr. Anandi Martis to everybody. She definitely has worn many feathers in her cap, I would say. Dr. Anandi Martis retired as the Professor of Education after a service of 35 years at postgraduate and undergraduate level at St. Anne's College of Education, Mangalore, and as Professor and Head of the Department of Postgraduate Studies in Education at St. Thomas Training College, Pala and Kottayam in India. She holds a PhD degree in education in the area of nurturing creativity. She contributed her expertise to 20 major projects of Government of India, Government of Karnataka, UGC Mangalore University, non-governmental organizations and educational institutions in the area of value education, peace education, environment education, and instructional strategies. As a coordinator for 9 years of the extension services of DSERT, Karnataka State, she has conducted over 200 workshops for the teachers and principals of secondary schools of India in the areas of teaching and she has extensively worked in the area of nurturing creativity among students, teachers, and corporate people. In recognition of her work in creative thinking in education, she was awarded in the year 1999 Eckstein Scholarship by the Creative Education Foundation, Buffalo, USA, to participate at their creative problem solving Institute at Buffalo, USA. She has a rich experience of presenting papers and moderating sessions at national and international conferences at Thailand, USA, Italy, and Israel, Rome, Singapore, Malaysia, to name a few. She has served as the Dean of the Faculty of Education, Mangalore University, Chairperson of the Composite Board of Studies in Education, UG and PG, of Mangalore University, and member of the Board of Faculty of other universities. She is an examiner, curriculum planner and designer, a research guide to a number of universities. She was selected to comment on the draft of the National Policy of Education 2016 of MHRD. She has served as a resource person, having taken more than 500 workshops, seminars, and conferences in India and abroad. Presently, she has retired from active service and serves as a resource person for seminars and conferences and is involved with her new venture, Dishai Learn to Earn, a skill development center for disadvantaged people of the society. A very, very warm welcome to you, ma'am. It's indeed an honor to have you amidst us with so much knowledge. I'm sure we all stand to gain a lot in this session. And with a little note to the participants that I request all of you to remain on mute during this session so that we can, get the maximum benefit from all of ma'am's knowledge. And at the same time, in case you have queries, you may write those queries in the chat box. We will definitely be keeping a tab of the chat box and we will take up those queries with ma'am as and when ma'am takes a little break in the middle of the session or towards the end of the session too. Apart from that, we will also be posting the attendance feedback as well as certificate link in the chat box at the end of the workshop. So, and we'll be right here with you till nearly 6 p.m. waiting for you to fill out your form. So there is no need for you to get stressed about anything, right? So over to you, Anandi ma'am, and we're waiting to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for a warm welcome and a very warm introduction. I'm really elated to be with you all, my colleagues, younger ones in the field of education. You are the ones who are grounded, rooted in the field work. And my experience with you will make me grow as well. And I marvel at your energy, at your resourcefulness, and your hard work. I'm grateful to the chairperson of this association, Mrs. Manila Carvalho, and the office bearers and all the members for giving me an opportunity to interact with you all. And let us see in what way we can together build a better world. So with this, I've been given a topic of a research paper. So I'll be doing a session on research paper. Let us see what exactly we are going to cover in this session. Next slide, please. So in this session, we will understand what a research paper is. How do we plan the research? How do we conduct the research? How do we complete the research process? How do we format a research paper? What are different aspects of language and style we have to keep in mind when we write a research paper? And then what are some of the ethics we need to follow when we conduct and we report educational research? The next slide. So the objective of this session is, at the end of the session, the participants will understand what the research process is. The participant should be able to list the steps of formatting the research paper. The participants will write the paper with accurate language and style, and participants will evaluate research papers. So keeping these objectives in mind, let me take you to a glimpse of us. I mean, the sense within 60 minutes, it is very difficult to cover such a large aspect of a research paper. However, I'll try to do justice. And let me give you a conceptual idea of what a research paper is. A research paper, next slide. A research paper actually is a report of the research done by the researcher in order to share the findings for the betterment of the humanity. We write research papers for seminars, conferences, and journals. Whatever research is done, it has to be disseminated so that from the research findings, we develop new theories. From new theories, we get new knowledge. And it takes nearly 20 years, 30 years for the new knowledge to get into the textbooks from the theories which have been produced from research. So any research, whether it is in the fundamental subjects or whether it is in the applied subjects like social sciences, it takes a lot of time for the research to get inside into our textbooks. So whatever we contribute, it takes a longer time to get into the field. So when we talk of research paper, it is a product of a research done by a researcher. I'm aware large number of the faculty in our educational institutions conduct research. Large number of our teachers undergoing research processes. They are doing their dissertations at their med level. They must be submitting their MPhil theses, and many large number of our teachers at pre-university level, college level, school level, they are doing their PhD programs. So whatever work we have done so far, we need to report, we need to share. So let us see how we can do that in the aspect of enriching ourselves and enriching others. Next slide. What is research? Research is solving a problem following a scientific process. We solve problems. A mathematical problem is given to a child. Automatically, when a child has to solve a mathematical problem, a scientific process is going on in the mind. Unless the child copies somebody's answer or the problem, the scientific process will work, will make the child reason out. So even in the smallest aspect of a problem, what I try to emphasize here is we have to solve the problem in a scientific way. What is a scientific process? What type of scientific process we have to follow in our research papers? We have to state a problem. We have to define the problem. We have to show that we have collected the data on the problem. That is, we have to do a reference work, library work. We have to formulate hypotheses. We have to test the hypothesis by the tools we have prepared, interpret or infer the data that is tested, conclude the data, and draw the generalizations. So, before we write a paper, we need to conduct research. It may be a very small research. It can be a part of your MPhil thesis. It may be a part of your MA thesis, or it can be part of your PhD thesis, because when you have to submit your PhD thesis, you have to actually publish a few papers based on some of the variables of your study. So it can be any part of the research you have already done, or you can conduct research in order to write a paper for a seminar, for a conference. So when you get a theme for a conference, or when you get a particular journal which gives you a theme, write a research paper on a particular theme. In that aspect, you have to conduct a research regarding that particular theme, what has been given. For example, let us go to the next slide. Yes. When we go for research, the first step that we have to experience is sensing the problem. We can sense the problem for research at different school levels, departmental level, management level. Where is the source for the problem? Many researchers, young researchers, come to me and they sit in front of me and say, "Ma'am, I want to do my PhD study. Give me a problem." This is not a type of research that we are looking for. What we have to do is we have to find a source. What is the source now today? Today we have a source. We have a National Policy of Education 2020, where it tells us about universal access to quality education. The universal access, what is universal access? Universal access is every person, irrespective of gender, caste, race, geographical location, minorities, all have to have access for education. And that education has to be quality education. What is quality education? Quality education is 100% excellence. It is not 35%, it is not 50%. According to National Policy of Education, it is 100%. Quality, whether it's a primary level, whether it is at high school level, whether it is at degree level or PG level or doctoral level. We have to have universal access. We have to have quality in that education. So we have problems in every area, whether in this universal access. We have studies, we can have studies at minorities too, gender, we have girl education, girl child admissions, we have instructions, what is our evaluation methods, what is the quality of education, what is the percentages we have at different levels, what is our what the pass marks we call them to promote a child to the next class, what is the criteria we follow for these aspects. So we can have research done in these areas. Coming to this universal access of national policy of education, I want to make a mention of the 4 pillars of UNESCO. UNESCO has given us 4 pillars of education. Basically, most of the countries take the structure of UNESCO policy of education when you prepare your policy of education. So the 4 pillars of education, I'm sure you're aware of that. It is learning to be, learning to know, learning to be, learning to know, learning to do, and learning to live together. Out of that, that is, you look at those foundation skills. We have foundation skills, the vertical skills. We have intellectual skills, we have problem solving skills, we have logical skills, we have concrete problem solving, we have abstract problem solving, and we have a number of skills which you have to cater to our students in our school. Every skill, there is a research problem. We can sense research problem in these skills. Second, we'll go to learning to be, learning to be myself, my emotional skills, my self-concept, my empathy, my mental health, my personality, my attitude. So that comes under learning to be. Let us go to the next one. Foundation skill is learning to know. Emotional skills we come to know is learning to be, and learning to do your teamwork, your leadership, and do your skills, practical skills, your construction of work, construction of skills, different type of lab work, different type of art performance, performing art, dance, music, learning to do. And the 4th pillar is learning to live together. They are the social skills. How do we get along with others? How do we have generosity? How do we have concern? How do we have empathy? So this is what are the 4 pillars, and from there we have got these fundamental skills, we have social skills, we have emotional skills, and we have doing skills. Coming to our school objectives, what are the visions and missions of our schools? Our research problems are hiding there. So come to the next slide. Let us see the next slide. We have what we call them as inputs. We have the processes and we have the output. The input helps us to achieve our school objectives. We have physical facilities, we have staff, we have a support staff, we have goals and objectives of the institution and the course, we have admission modalities, and we have student input. What is the profile of the student which enters my school? Have I got a profile made for every class? Can we make a profile for every class? And at the end of the year, what should be the profile of that child after undergoing the process? That is the strategies used for theory and practice in the classroom. What are the methods we are using for our evaluation? What is a summative evaluation we are following in the school at the end of the year? Everyone is doing it very effectively. We can have a comparative study on the summative evaluation of different schools. What is a formative evaluation? Formative evaluation is done continuously. Use of infrastructural facilities, and what are some of the faculty development programs? How successful are they? Coming to the output, what is the seal we have on our students when they pass out? What is the, suppose you have a school, let us say you have a school, Navodaya school. How is a student coming out of Navodaya school different from a student who is coming from a so let's say Greenwood school? Are they similar? Are they putting the same stamp? Or in some way, are they different? So we need to develop some type of profile for every class and for the final profile when the student goes out. Role specifications: logical thinker, problem finder, problem solver, environmental friendly, socially concerned, value integrated, transfer what to the learners, community, and nation building. So these are some of the output our profile can integrate into the student's personality. Let us go to the next slide. Before we conduct any research, we need to raise questions. And these questions later on formulate research questions. And research questions should come into your research paper. So let us see some of, I've written a few examples which I felt that we should discuss. Now, large number of students go for tuitions. Why do my students go for tuition? This is a sensing a problem here. There is a problem here. There is a research problem here. How can I improve my students in decimal competencies? There is a problem here. I sense a problem here. Large number of my students are making errors in putting those decimal points. Does my teaching languages improve creative writing? Do the students develop some type of creative competencies by my teaching languages? Any language, first language, second language, third language. Why do my students copy from others in the class? How can I encourage self-learning? What methods helping our social skills? Do we have special type of strategies and programs to improve social skills? See, the Bruce Joyce has explained in his models of instructions. He has, in 1996, he has given to us a number of strategies in the form of models of instruction. And he says that for every aspect or every skill, you have to have a special type of instruction. If you want to develop only concepts among children, then in the class, you have to follow concept attainment type of model or concept attainment instruction, which has different steps. Suppose you want to develop in your students analytical thinking. For this type of students, you want them to ask questions. You want to develop students to ask a number of questions. So you have enquiry skills. How do you develop enquiry skills? So he says, you have to design a special program only to develop enquiry skills. Third one, suppose you want to develop social skills. You want to develop social skills, then you have some other type of models. You can use a cooperative learning model. Johnson & Johnson actually has given us a number of ways a cooperative learning can be implemented in the classrooms. So we have cooperative learning, which will develop your teamwork, which will develop your leadership qualities. They will also help them to wait for others, listen to others, share your data. Suppose you want to develop creative writing. So Bruce Joyce says for that you have to use a special type of instruction strategy in a classroom only to develop creative writing. So one method will not develop everything. It will not develop your social skills, it will not develop your fundamental skills, it will not develop your things to do or your values. You want to inculcate certain types of values, then for that particular session, you have to follow a particular model which will only develop, the children will be able to understand what are values, how the values come into conflict, which value can I select when the two values conflict, what will happen when my value is not appreciated. So you have these types of strategies for different types of skills, in our classrooms. So that is what I'm talking about, what methods are helping in social skills. We'll go to the next one. Let's go to the other aspects of, is it under departmental level, the slide? Is it the next slide? In between, is there a slide? Okay, next one. Okay. Now, see some of the questions we raise here. In my school, regarding the space, is there any wastage in my building? A checklist will tell you, or too much of cramming, use of water, toilet usage, sports facility. I just wanted to share here, we had a very interesting project in the school. A colleague of mine was given a job to construct a new building. And he was in Europe for a very long time. And when he constructed the building, he built such beautiful bathrooms, toilets. In other words, they were so good. They were more like glamour rooms. So when I asked him, you have built these toilets and bathrooms, both for both genders, male and female of the college. I said, how will they keep this clean? How will we maintain everything else? So he said, we will train them. And he conducted a project on visiting with the students. He visited a number of institutes and checked their bathrooms and toilets. And with a checklist, he made a status of their toilets. After that, they prepared a training material for the students. Everything, small things taken into consideration. How to use the wash basin, how to use the commode, how to use your Indian toilet, how to use the water, how to keep it dry. All those aspects were taught, which the students did know. And for after 2 months of training, again, the checklist was conducted in these institutions. There wasn't a very vast difference, but there was a significant improvement in the maintenance of the toilets. It's a small study, very interesting study, but I know the small children sometimes who are used to go to the toilets, they don't go to the toilets, and sometimes they pass urine in the classroom because they don't want to go to the toilets. But then it may convert into a psychological problem, but actually it starts from a physical problem. Then we are coming to the sports facility. Then we are coming, another issue here, we can have a staff concern. My staff absence, staff leaving. And we have statistics of this. And can we compare and prepare a paper on this? We have PTA involvement, ways of discussing the behavior of the child. How are we discussing our behavior of the child with the children? Then we have what we call a new concept called parent education. As a matter of fact, syllabus has been prepared in order to train these parents in parent education. Otherwise, in India, parents bring up their children in a trial and error method. And parents send their children for tuitions, not knowing that a child who is getting 50% cannot sit in a tuition class where the child, another child has got 70%. Now the 70% child should get at least 80 to 90% because of the tuitions. And the child with 50% at least first gets 60 to 70%. Or a child who is getting 30% should come up to 40, 50%. But in our tuition classes, you will find all types of students giving, tuitions, everybody. But who is going to check what is the result of the tuitions? So one type of parent education you can introduce as a research study. Then inputs I have already done, outputs I have explained. Coming to the abuse, sexual abuse, bullying is there, taunting is there. This is where the students don't open their mouth, but they will answer your scale, they will answer your tools, they will answer your checklist when you give them. And you will get a very good report, and some things will be real eye-openers to us about this particular aspect. This is a neglected area, actually. We don't have much studies in this type of in this abuse, like genders, bullying, taunting, and it is there. Then teacher evaluation, self-evaluation, student evaluate the teachers, peer evaluate the teachers, management evaluates the teachers, principal evaluates the teacher, teachers evaluate the principal, teachers evaluate the management. Think about it. Teachers' job satisfaction. Teachers, I must congratulate every teacher for opting to teach. And it may not give you 100% job satisfaction, but if you enjoy and if you have a passion, then your job satisfaction will automatically come. Then coming to our extension work to community, to what extent the school is involved in the community work. Research can be done in this particular area also. Nowadays, lot of NGOs have come up, in the small companies have come up in order to help the disadvantaged. So a tie-up with that, a new thing has come, what we call it as gift of time, where the students barter the time. They spend time with the seniors, and seniors are happy to spend time with the youngsters. And in return, for that particular time, the child will get something else. So people are venturing into this type of concepts in the form of helping both the youngsters and the senior citizens of our community. Next one. I have listed a few things for the management level and the department level, what the principals can do, or you as your association can undertake small projects, because every research has financial implications. So little funding is needed. If it is a project of 400 people sample, 500 people sample, something like this. So you have some topics can be the changing role of teachers. Now the roles have changed because of the new normal. You have online classes, teachers' roles different. You have to prepare different types of modules. Students come to schools. Some places abroad, they come in smaller number. They divide the class into, say, 1/3 of the class comes one day, then the second group comes and the third group comes. So the teacher's role also changes. So what was the role earlier? What is the role today? And what's the difference? A study on that. The subjects are also changing. So many new subjects are coming. So what is the evaluation of these subjects? Do the parents like this subject? Students like this subject? Use of media. How many use media? How often? How effective they are? How are our staff meetings? How do they go about? Evaluative study of that. How many students of my school take tuitions? What are the causes? What is the effect of that? Is there a remedy for that? How many play sports with peer, not in the school, outside? Some of the psychological problems our children have, they have a low self-concept, they get into their own shell at the teenager level, 13, 14 years, the active child, a chirpy child will become a very quiet child. The role changes. Some of these studies could be done. Specific skills can be taken into account, like your creative skills, logical skills, science process skills. You can measure them. Tools are available. You can use the standardized tools. You can prepare tool, and you can conduct a small study. Values, sex education, adolescent counseling, then gender equality for both male and female. We can have studies on that. The next one. We have what we call it as action research or classroom research. This is meant for the classroom teaching. And this is an experimental study. And here we take very, very small group and we conduct a research on those 50 students or 30 students, because we don't find all students doing equally well in all the competencies. You must be aware as teachers a concept called minimum levels of teaching. It had happened in sometime in 1980s, and there were a number of projects started by Dr. Dave, actually, minimum levels of teaching. He came to a conclusion that every class, the students must have 70% of attainment in every skill. And 70% of the class must attain 70% competencies of a particular skill. That means 30% of the class may not achieve all the competencies. This is what comes to quality in education. Now, suppose if the students don't perform up to 70%, then what do? Then we have to coach the student in the class in that particular competency to come up to 70%. Now, how many of our students are good in reading aloud or balancing of equations? Do they make errors there? They do theorems using geometrical precisions, algebraical equations, map reading skills, sports, cultural, communication skills. So some of the skills with this little treatment given in the class of 10 sessions or 20 sessions, the students will come up, and they come up to 100% sometimes. So this we call it as action research, or it is also known as classroom research. You all must be aware of this, because it is part of the research methodology at MEd level. The next one. We have surveys. There are two types here. If you want, you can have a descriptive survey where you describe the data in the form of percentages. You just go in for percentages and finish your paper. Or you go for inferential statistics. You can have a comparative study, you can have a relationship study, you can have a study with differences regarding the tuitions, hobbies, teacher mentor availability, use of mobiles, how many children of your school are alone at home and they manage themselves alone. They go and open their lock and they sit alone till the parents come. Abuses at home, abuses at school, bus and other places. These are some of the surveys you can conduct. Next one. Once you decide your problem, you select and you define the problem. Define the different variables in a problem. A problem, your research problem must have minimum 2 variables. And within that, those variables you select to define those variables. You put it in very simple terms so that a layman understand what do you mean by that particular term. What is the meaning of logical reasoning? What do you mean by quality? What is the meaning of creative writing or fluency of ideas, flexibility of ideas, originality of ideas in creative writing? So you have to define them. Then you prepare a research proposal. You conduct the research, score, analyze, interpret the data, and conclude. Now your research work is ready. Now you can write your research paper. So far, I gave you an introduction to what a research paper is, what are the different aspects of research. We have to keep in mind before we write a research paper, we need to conduct the research. Shall we go for 10 minutes discussion or any questions?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Indira.
Yes.
Ma'am, now when we are conducting a research at school level, right?
Yes.
There is a wide variety of tools available.
Yes.
Right? So, ma'am, where or how is it that we know that which tool would be more appropriate for a particular topic, for the particular problem that we are looking for? Like,
you have to, the title of the tool will tell you. The title of the tool will tell you, and the variables in the title of the tool will tell you that that particular tool is suitable for your particular variable of your research. Secondly, when you can get your standardized tool, there is a manual which comes along with that tool. You don't just download your tool. You have to also download the manual or you buy the manual along with the tool. And the manual will tell you the objective of the tool, why has the tool been prepared, on what population the tool has been standardized, what is the reliability and validity of the tool. And when you buy these tools, you have to take the permission from the author. That is one of the research ethics we forget when we do our research, that to acknowledge the author of the standardized tool from where I'm getting it and I'm using it for my research. When I come to research ethics, I wanted to discuss this.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And there's one more question.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Anupama Ramachandra.
Excuse me, ma'am.
I request the audience to please put the questions in the chat box and it will become simpler for us to take them up and for everybody to benefit from those. There is another question, ma'am. It says, how do we know if the topic we have selected is already taken up by someone else previously?
For what level of research is this? This is at what level? Is it at PhD level?
We could assume PhD, ma'am.
PhD level.
Yes.
Okay. For PhD level research, you have to go to Dissertation Abstract International, and we have in the Indian research surveys. We have to go download Indian research surveys and check how many PhDs have been done in those areas. And these survey books are categorized into, research in psychology, research in psychological education, research in sociological education, research in methodologies, research in mathematics, research in languages. We have to go through all the latest studies. And secondly, it depends what varies. You will not take the same study for a PhD because your sample is different. You're doing the study on a different sample, and you're doing a study, maybe there was a study 30 years ago. That study needs to be redone again. And when you're redoing that, we have to see the present conditions in our schools. And our tools should help us to draft and collect this data based on the present conditions. So 30 years of earlier research is of no value for us now. We take research findings of 10-year-old and 20-year-old. So when we report in our related studies also, we give preference for the last 10 years findings only. How many research studies are done for the last 10 years? Then we evaluate the research thesis based on next 10 years. Nobody is interested to do research on the data which is about 25 years old or 30 years old. It is a dead wood. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Another question that we have is, can any teacher, irrespective of educational background, conduct research in education? Where are these published?
Irrespective of
educational background, conduct research in education. Maybe maybe it could be meaning the subjects that the teacher
yes.
is dealing with.
Yeah. See, if you're going for a formal type of a degree, for example, if you're going for an MA degree, or if you're going for MA degree, or if you're going for an MPhil degree, it's a formal education and they have got their own requirements. But you're teaching in a school at level, maybe even in a primary school, you can conduct action research. Right. It doesn't matter. There is no need to know very sophisticated research at all. You can do this action research. For example, I have conducted so many action researches. I mean, I've guided them also at a very primary school level, where the children map reading skills. Children didn't know which was north, south, east, west, very poor. And with the correct treatment, the scores, the percentages improved. That itself is a type of research, provided you have the research steps. And you don't need high degrees of qualification for that. You can always help. You people can conduct workshops for these teachers. As a departmental level, you conduct workshop how to conduct action research. They take 1 full year, beginning of the year and end of
academic year. Yes.
Yes.
Right, ma'am. Yes, that would really mean and be very fruitful for us teachers, because that can happen at the micro level and can be a
yes.
point to begin with. We also have one more question. Could you suggest some universities that you would, recommend for doing a PhD in education? They're specifically asking PhD in education.
I do not know now what are the new rules of admission. Secondly, they don't encourage, I think, correspondence PhDs now. You have to be a regular student. And to be a regular student, you have to answer these GRE or GRF research fellowship exam, for which you'll get a stipend. So every department at every university has got admissions for GRF students and GRE students. So now the admissions are taken for PhDs that way. But you have other PhD program. You may have a university, but it all depends on your mentor, how good your mentor also is. that also is important. More than having a university department, how good is your mentor? How you have to find out, go through the profile, go to the biodata of different people at different universities. So you have Bangalore universities close by there. Maybe these are the universities. But then people also go for correspondence type of PhDs. But I don't know now whether that is being registered. Otherwise, you have, I cannot just recommend that way any university.
I'm
because,
sure, yes.
Yeah.
We do understand that is your predicament. We do understand that, ma'am. And one more little question is, which I think would be pertaining to many of our school teachers, is if an action research is conducted at the school level by a teacher, where all can she have it published? Can she have it published at all?
Publish your Sahodaya will publish.
Sure, ma'am. So definitely we will be reaching out to Manila, ma'am.
Give them motivation. At least you have 30 researchers. You get a beautiful book on action research of Sahodaya. So you have that way, you organize seminars where you have only present the action research in different, and so many teachers will be interested, youngsters, to know, oh, this method will help, that method will help. There are a lot of, and resource persons will be there. They can help you, no problem. So you conduct, and that will be one platform.
Brilliant idea.
I don't know at private level, but at government level, secondary school levels, there are platforms where action research is presented. They conduct certain conference seminars to present only action research conducted.
In fact, I just want to mention here
award and those things. Best teacher award.
In fact, I just want to mention here, we are coming up with the Sahodaya National Conference on 11th and 12th December, and the circular is already out by CBSE, asking for research papers. So there is an opportunity now at the moment for the teachers to send the papers in.
Very short time.
Circular number 101 from CBSE. Yeah, thank you,
ma'am. I'm sure many participants can make use of this information.
Yeah. Shall we go for the next part of
Yes, ma'am. Sure, we can continue our journey of going through the presentation.
Okay. So now we are coming to the outline of the research paper. How am I going to write my research paper? I emphasize here, you have completed your research. You have followed the research process. That is, you have defined your problem. You have collected the data. You have formulated the hypothesis. You have tested the hypothesis. You have analyzed the data. You have interpreted the data. And you have drawn conclusions, and everything is ready. Now you have to write the paper. So how do I format a research paper? Now, research is international. It is not, in the sense, I cannot say it is only for Bangalore people, or it is only for Delhiites, or for this university. That is no. Research is international. It is global. So a person in Japan, a person in India, a person in Kenya, or a person in Argentina, they should understand your research paper, because your data, your findings are important. And if you are putting your paper in international journals, then people will read all over. Today, you will get them in all sites. So many sites are there. So what I say is, we follow what we call it as APA guidelines, American Psychologists Association. There is an American Psychologists Association. They publish their journals every year. Now the latest one is known as the 7th edition, and I acknowledge it, and I referred that particular APA to research paper. So you can download it, you read what does APA guidelines say.
You're muted. If you can unmute, madam. Anandi ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Title page. That is the first page. What do we write on that? Title of your paper. Presentation. Where are you going to present? Which conference? Where? Author's name. Where are you from? Department, university, school. When are you going to present? So this is the title page. Sometimes they ask the principal has to forward it. There are some restrictions. If you have, then you have to do that. Principal signature may be needed. After that, now, there is a difference between the title of the paper and the statement of the problem. Title of the paper is more comprehensive, not very specific. So it only tells you the main aspects of your paper. So you will not write study on such a thing, something like that. And at the same time, we must remember when a conference is there or whenever you have a seminar, they give you a theme. Now, I'll give an example. Suppose there is a theme like present trends and challenges of instructions in schools. Simple one I have taken. Present trends and challenges of instruction in schools. It's a very wide topic. Why? You can write a paper on the present trends. You can write a paper on challenges. You can write your paper of instructions. It can be language. It can be your social sciences. It can be social science subjects. It can be commerce. It can be co-curricular. It can be sports. Any type of instructions. And at primary level, secondary level, higher secondary level, see the sub-themes you have. So many sub-themes. Then schools, I have got that word, as I told you, present trends of instruction in schools. What type of schools we have? We have school CBSE schools, we have private schools, we have government schools, we have aided schools, we have schools for challenged people, we have schools which mainstream these challenged students. So wow, see the sub-theme. So I may pick up a particular sub-theme like the challenges faced by a teacher regarding instruction in teaching Hindi in a CBSE school. So when I write the title paper, if it is for a conference or seminar, you have to write there presentation at the conference conducted by such a thing. This is the theme, and you have to write your sub-theme. If you are writing a paper for a conference or a seminar, if you are writing for just for a publication, then there is no need to write all those aspects of sub-theme, theme, and all those things. Now, every paper has got an abstract. What's an abstract? Abstract is the summary of your paper. It may be of 150 to 250 words. The organizers or the editor of a journal will specify how many words should be there in your abstract. Abstract is placed on a separate sheet with title page details. It is written as a single paragraph without headings. Abstract is not written first. Abstract is written after your whole paper is ready. Though the abstract comes your second page in your paper, but it is not written first. It is written last. Abstract helps the organizers to categorize your paper and to give you a date, group the papers according to the themes and arrange your timetable when you will do your presentation. Abstract will also help the organizers to reject the paper if it is not up to the mark. And abstract will also help a person need not read the full paper. If you have no time, you can only read the abstract and continue that way. So this is, every research paper should have an abstract. What does the abstract contain? I'll do that later. Next one. Body of the paper. This is the main paper actually. A body of the paper, first part is introduction. What does the paper contain? The paper contains research questions and the answers. So I had mentioned about some questions at the beginning. So when you conduct a research, certain questions come to your mind, and convert those questions into research questions. Will this particular strategy improve the competencies of reading in my children? A research question. Yeah. Is logical reasoning and creativity related? Research question. So as an answer to these questions, you are taking a study. That and introduction should tell us what does the remaining part of the paper contain. It contains your statement of the problem, methodology, findings, all those things will come under introduction. That itself is about one introduction could be nearly 1 page or 3/4 of a page. Second part of body is state your problem and define the problem. Statement means a study on logical reasoning and creativity among the students of standard 9 of such a school or such an area. So that is statement of this problem. What is definition of the problem? Definition of the problem, I define there what is logical reasoning. Now, whose definition am I going to take? Not mine. I'm taking the latest definition, which has evolved from a theory. Somebody who has done some research and his theory has been accepted, and I have taken the definition for logical reasoning from there. Or I'm using a standardized tool of logical reasoning, and there is a definition given in that particular tool. So I'm measuring that particular logical reasoning, so that definition should come there. Definitions are always acknowledged within the bracket with the author and the year there. Unless you yourself, you have evolved your own definition for a particular problem. Digging into creativity, creativity has been defined for the last 1950s onwards, coming from Torrance to Gordon and Guilford, and the others have defined. So whose definition are you taking? That definition should come. Then comes the theoretical background. What does theory say about the status of my study? You have to write there. At least some theories you have to quote to show that you have done your research. Strong research, theoretical. The research comes from theories actually. There are two ways the research can evolve. One, the research problem can come from theory because you don't agree with the theory. Some of the theories which we have learned, they are not agreeable today. If you have to, some of the theories, what Piaget says, I don't think are agreeable today. That we have a separate discussion some other time. Some of the theories, old theories, they are no longer hold good today in our classroom, in the digital world when we are coming there. Some of the theories of punishments and so many theories we don't agree. We raise a question there. That is a research question. So a research problem evolves from a theory where we, as I told you, when we don't agree up with a particular theory. So how do I know that? I have to do the reading. I have to search. That is why I have to search, research, search, and research. Research, that is why it's called research. Then, another way of getting problems from the field. We come from the field. The problem is then that goes to the theory. So in the classroom, I identify a problem. In my school, I identify a problem which is not agreeable with the theory. So I go and search that in the theory, and that becomes a problem for me for my research. So these two things should come in your paper. Where did the problem evolve? Then you justify your study. In your justification of the study, you that's what I have to say. See the next one. Explain the theories for your variables. Quote what research says about your problem and where is the research gap. We also call it as research lacunae or research gaps. There are gaps because I don't agree with the theory. So that gap has to be filled up by me, by my findings. My findings are finally will become theory on some day. If about 50 research are done in your same area, then we pool those findings, that may become a theory. So we need to justify why have I taken this research? How do I justify? What are the related studies say regarding logical reasoning? Somewhere in Africa, somewhere in UK, somewhere in Rajasthan, somewhere in Kerala. Any study done in logical reasoning? What does it say? Any studies done on creative competencies? What does it say? So justify. That is, this study doesn't hold good now. I don't agree with these findings. These findings, if it's too old. So I feel that I should conduct this research. That is how I justify. So that we call it as justification. That becomes the third part of your paper. Next comes the objectives. Objective is, how to write a research objective. Very clear, very specific, and only one variable you'll measure in that objectives. Then the next one, next slide. There are hypotheses, you list them. Usually we have research hypotheses we form. Now, if you have hypotheses, then you have to have, if you have statistical hypothesis or research hypothesis, then your statistical procedures have to, what you follow should be specified at the later area. Then we have methodology. Under methodology, you write under design. What's your research design? What type of research are you doing? Is it an experimental study? If it is an experimental study, what experimental design are you doing? Single group design, pre-test design, factorial design, matching design. There are many designs are there. You can do that. If you are not doing experimental study, and if you are going for a descriptive study, where you describe your data, then it can be a descriptive study. You write what type of study, what are the steps there. So that is what I've said here, type of research. Is it descriptive? Is it differential? Is it relational, correlational? Or it is just a qualitative study? Then my population. On whom am I doing my study? Sample, there is a difference between a sample and population. Sample is part of my population. So I have to define my population in my paper. I have to define my sample, whether I've taken 200 students, whether I've taken 500 students, depending on that. Or even if I've taken a small action research in your school, even with 100 students, it is fine. Then the tools. Have I prepared some tools? It's always appreciated if you construct your own tool because you know the problem rather than taking someone else's tool. So you can prepare a checklist, you can prepare a questionnaire, you can prepare a scale, you can prepare an opinionaire, you can prepare an observation schedule, you can prepare interview schedule, interview is also a tool. So you have tool and how have you scored your data depending on that tool, and then how you have collected the data, that comes under methodology. Next is analysis of the data. Objective 1, how have you analyzed? What is the finding? Objective 2, how have you analyzed? What is the hypothesis? What have you done? There is no need to see in this research paper, there's no need to put lot of tables. Avoid tables. If you can combine the tables, it is better. Unnecessary tables should be avoided. So few graphs you can give. Graphs are easier to interpret. And tables, if the statistical tables, people don't like to read them. They only read the lower part where the findings are there. So avoid too many tables. Drawing conclusions. What are the implications of your study? For whom is your study useful? And references used. References used means you acknowledge the help of what you have received from everyone. So in that you acknowledge your references, your tools, your reference, your theses you have referred of somebody, so many papers you have downloaded. We download only. How many of us upload our research? That's another question. So downloading all the research papers, you have to give the link there. There's a way to write, how to write a reference for all your downloaded papers or downloaded journals or whatever it is. So this we call it as the body of the paper. This ends your research paper. Now we'll go to the next one is the abstract, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go to the language. What do we write in the language? Research is already done, so it has to be in the past tense. And research is an active voice. Passive voice to be avoided. Spelling has to be very accurate. Your writing should reflect your honesty and resourcefulness. There should be no bias in the sense gender bias, any type of bias. And there should be no subjectivity. You can't give your opinion. You have to only report facts. No opinion and no bias. Sentence starts with the subject. If it's an active voice, it will start with the subject. All major variables start with a capital letter. Before you write your paper, you have to decide which of the words in your research you will particularly use a capital letter. For example, logical reasoning. There you use L capital, reasoning R capital. And if you have got that from the first page of the paper, all throughout you have to use the same way capital letters. Author should be quoted along with year in bracket. Related studies to be quoted in descending order. Sentences have to be short. There should be punctuation, very correct, your commas, full stop, dashes, capital letters, inverted commas. Stick to the same term throughout. Now, suppose you are using students of standard 9. In other place, you can't say 9th standard student. You have changed the order of the term. If you have started with students of standard 9, all through the paper, you have to use the word student of standard 9. You can't change. No vague, abstract and adjective terms. So for example, like few of them. What do you mean by few? According to me, few can be only 3. For somebody else, few can be 10. For some, it may be 50. So all these adjectives we don't use. Good, better, nice, no adjectives. No abstract terms. Every term has to concrete, definable. Every word has, what you use there, it has to be defined. No numericals. Even if you are saying 40%, you write that in words. You don't write 40 and then you put a percentage mark there. You write in words. FORTY, 40% in words. Next one. Now, what's the style of writing? APS says actually it has to be double spaced. But nowadays, because of you get such lovely printouts and all those, that's why nowadays they use 1.5 spacing actually. that reduces this bulk of your thesis or your bulk of your paper also. So use 1-inch margin on all sides. All paragraphs in the body are indented. And those indented space has to be same. If you are keeping 8 space or 10 space, it has to be same throughout. Usually they suggest 12-point font. 13 is also used. Times Roman is the standard one which is used. All pages are numbered. Tables to be introduced. What do you mean by tables to be introduced? I introduce a table. For example, when you number a table, table 1.1 shows the analysis of mean, standard deviation, t-value, or some significance, all that. That has to be introduced. And a table has to be read. After you give a table, you have to write below. We have three levels there. We say first we read a table, then we analyze the table, then we accept or reject the hypothesis, and we conclude. So if your table is showing there to accept or reject the hypothesis, that inferential statistics to be used, and it has to be concluded accordingly. Link between sentences and paragraphs. So what happens sometimes, the student, when they do the theoretical background, they jump. They give one theory of one person on top of paragraph, and the lower, there is completely different. There is no link, but you have to say, in the above paragraph, the investigator discussed the theories. Now we will get into some more insight into, like that. You should give a link. There should be a link between paragraphs. Subtitles to be numbered. Actually 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, we number like that. There is a formatting structure of writing a paper is different, and what we write chapters in the theses or your dissertations, it is different. There we have 3 figures, 1.00 for introduction, 2.00 for your second chapter, 3.00 that way. But in your paper, you start as 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, that way. You can number them like that. References should be in alphabetical order. The length of the paper to be accurate. Usually, they give you the number of words in the paper. What should be the total number of words in the paper? So your paper should not exceed that number. Because in case your paper has to be printed in some journal, then today the journal cost and the budgeting and all is there, and each one writes so many pages, because when you write a paper, it becomes longer and longer and longer. So we need to condense it, and the length has to be according to the requirements given to you by the organizers. All right, this is the style. Next one. Let us come to the abstract. Now, an abstract has got its own limitations. As I told you, it can be 150 words, or it can be, sometimes they'll also tell you, give us only in 20 words. So an abstract should come to the theme and sub-theme of the research, and an introduction of some theoretical aspect, and what methodology has been followed, and what findings are there in the research. That will come in the abstract. But remember, the abstract should come next to the title page, but we write the abstract last. That's next one. Now here there is an abstract of one of the papers which was submitted for an international conference. See the title. A study on academic adjustment and parental pressure on the mental health of senior secondary students. So at the first level, check whether, you just read it and check whether there is all aspects in this paper. The first part will give the introduction part of it. The second part tells you what does it contain. socioeconomic factors, educational level, marital status, having mental health problems, finding. The present study was conducted on semi-urban students. Your sample is there, using the general health questionnaire, that is your tool, which aim to find out the effect of academic adjustment and parental pressure on the mental health of senior secondary students, and to correlate the effect on both the genders. Results indicate that the psychological morbidity is prevailed in school children, and both academic adjustment and parental pressure are linked to psychological morbidity. So here they have given the findings also. So an abstract, little more of methodology you can give. If you can reduce the first part of it if you want. Because of the justification, it has been quoted why the study has been taken, because certain aspects have to be found out. That is why we have sample is here, methodology is here, tools are here, and the findings are here in the abstract. So it is about 150 words. So this is how the abstract goes. There are no paragraphs, no subheadings, nothing. It is just a simple number of, just written like this in the abstract. So next one. Next, now I think we will go for research ethics. What is research ethics? Ethics is, if you say it is a study of morality, if you come to the word meaning of ethics, morality it is actually. So a researcher should have intellectual honesty. There are certain characteristics of a researcher. He should be, should have passion for research. He should have openness, many characteristics. And one characteristic is intellectual honesty. That is, I report what I have found. I will not change my data. Some of the experimental studies I got for valuation. There was a study from Chennai in mathematical instruction, and that person actually tried a new method, and finally she reports the new method was not effective at all. I really appreciated the intellectual honesty of that person. Otherwise, what we do, I have done a research, I have used so much, I have done the experiment, I have prepared so much, and my method has to bring the increase the children's potentialities. No, need not. Report what you have got. Report what, but maybe the method it fails. We should not use it. But that is a finding. Finding is not as important as the whole methodology. The researcher has undergone the full process. So this is what happens when I talk of intellectual honesty. Resourcefulness and openness, hard work. Give your paper, give your problem for peer for criticism, good positive feedback. I don't say criticism, for good feedback. Let them analyze it, let them criticize it to the maximum. Don't feel bad about it. You will learn, you'll improve. How much I have cried when I was doing my PhD. I have to write chapters and chapters, and next time my guide used to say, now you cry little more than tonight also. So till the draft had to be ready. So criticism is there and we grow. Then data to be confidential. When we interview a person, when we collect the data, we don't disclose the person. But if the school wants, suppose logical reasoning is not measured in the school and you have conducted that, the principal and the parent would like to know what is the logical reasoning of that particular child. So there you share it. That is your, actually, it's a moral obligation that whichever school has obliged you to collect the data, you should share that data with them, but not discuss about that. Reach out to your subject about their performance. Now, plagiarism, reproducing or rewriting others' work without proper acknowledgement is not done. This lot of work is downloaded and copied. Today, research has become copy-paste. But when you go for your presentation somewhere, when they ask you 2-3 questions, you will know. People will know whether you have copied your paper or you have really conducted a research. Or when you send it for publication, the paper will be rejected. I have known once where there was this sub-theme, value education paper reading was going on, and the chairperson had done lot of work internationally at national level at NCRT on value education. And the person is reading the value education paper, which was published by that person itself in one of the books. He was saying, what type of honesty is this? So if you're downloading from somewhere, acknowledge it, either in your references or acknowledge with a different note. See, sometimes we have copyrights. Many of these standardized tools, they have copyrights. You have to take their permission. Otherwise, because they are original work, this is not your work. So you have to take permission. Permission to be obtained for tools to copy, paste, or for copyrights. This we call it as research ethics. Next. So we have, I think after this, a short discussion.
Thank you, ma'am, for the really comprehensive session on how to prepare a research paper. And I think a lot of us would be motivated because you began with a beautiful statement saying that we are all trying to build a better world when we are doing research. So with that lovely thought, I think many of the participants may be motivated to take on research, and they are coming up. I request the participants to please post any questions, any queries in the chat box, and we will take them for you. I have one question while some of them are still typing. That states, how can we prepare our own tools, and will they be valid and standardized?
This is for which one? For a paper or for a degree or university something?
I think, ma'am, we
There
could
are different
from
now.
Perspective of a research, a PhD, and if they want to use a particular tool, is it possible for them to create that own tool, prepare their tool, and will it be valid and standardized?
Yes. Now, if you're going for your PhD study, you have to use your standardized tool. You cannot use a tool which is not standardized. And if you're constructing a tool, there are certain steps to construct a tool. And that itself will take you 2-3 sessions to know how to construct a true tool. There is a blueprint. You have to prepare a blueprint first, and then you have to write the items. And after that, you have to calculate the content validity. You have to calculate the criterion validity. Then you have to calculate the reliability. There are different methods of calculating the reliability. So establish your validity and reliability first. And after that, you have item analysis, which you have to do. For each item of your tool, you have to analyze statistically and then get a value. And with that value, you accept that particular item or you reject that item. So if your tool is supposed to have 40 items, you prepare about 80 items for that tool. So over the period, maybe out of 80 may come down to 60 because certain items of your tool will be rejected. When you're doing your content validity, concurrent validity, and reliability, and when by the time you do your item analysis, it may come down to 45 or 50. So this is one process. And then you have to do your standardization. Standardization of a tool means your tool is applied to a large population. You have administered it to 1,000. See, larger the population is, the error is less. The standard error comes less in your values. So acceptance is more. But if you're taking a small sample of 50, the error is large. So depending on that is why we take large number for standardization. Standardization is a must for a tool, for a PhD. It may not be a must for lower type of degrees. It depends on your mentor. It depends on the university, the departments. Yeah.
Right. Right. Thank you, ma'am, for that. And there's one more little question which says that, is it advisable from your end to do some action research and try doing that and understanding that as a first step towards, before moving towards a PhD?
Yes, to experience that before moving for PhD, the person must have done his MEd or MA.
Right.
So in that, there is a research methodology paper. So
Right.
under the research methodology paper, the person must have done a dissertation before going for so the research is already there. So action research is for a teacher of the school, basically, or
So at a
action research
micro
for
level
teacher for
in
a
the
class.
classroom,
Yes,
to
classroom
understand
research.
what is working and what is not. We could all
Yes.
action research, of course. And
But action research can't be a PhD
of
work.
course,
It can't
yes.
be a thesis work.
Right, right. So excellent session, ma'am. I think the chat box is just flooded with thank you notes and appreciating all that you've shared with us. I think it was an amazing, amazing session. And right from, sensing the problem, raising questions, smaller things at the micro level about the action research, and how we can even use it to understand why a particular concept is not going down well with our students, to at the macro level understanding how something is working in the school and the managements could use that tool to research. It's very, very interesting the way you have kept us engaged with your rich knowledge and rich experience, and given us very, very pointed examples, that we could make use of. At the same time, you've really taken us through beautifully, I would say, through understanding not only the research process, but also formulating of the research paper, the steps of formatting the research paper, of writing the paper with the proper language, the proper style, as well as evaluating the research paper, and ending beautifully with our the last part that we have spoken about as the uh, abstract that we can have to have at the end of the research. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us